We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcasts are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My wonderful repeat guest is Rich Owen. We're going to be talking about his latest book, which is The Alchemy of Information and Protection, a cybersecurity druid's spell book. Sounds quite intriguing, huh? And what's that got to do with business? Everything. Because I think before you do any form of business, you've got to realize you are your business. And everything you represent and everything you feel and everything you are in tune with is your business. And it's how you reflect yourself out. He says cybersecurity is not one size fits all. Therefore, security must be tailored to the needs of the individual. The purpose of this book is to provide readers with rational business processes by which they can understand what information is important and why the alchemy of information protection was specifically written for the non-cybersecurity executive or business owner who wants to gain an understanding of the role in the protection of the company's information assets. 2, the person in the company who is tasked with creating and maintaining a cost-effective program to protect the company's information assets. And 3, the chief information security officer who may be reminded of some points where they can improve their programs. And over the 50 years of protection information, Rich has gone for and done had great opportunities and received much recognition in the work that he does. We had him on here before where we did talk about cybersecurity in your life and everything else. And you'll notice that he's written a great deal, many books, some of them which I have up here for you. One click takes you to Amazon and shows you them all. But we're talking about the alchemy of information and protection today. And let us get on with it, because that alchemy and information and protection is very much needed right now, isn't it, Rich?
Yes, it is. It's thank you for that kind introduction, and it reminded me probably the thing I'd want to if you don't listen to anything else here, is the CEO of the business. If they don't care about the protection of their information, they can rest assured the rest of the company won't either.
No, and I think what has happened very much in the past is that as people grew up into positions, CEO, CFO, that, they became more detached from the working of the business. And, really to be at the top is a responsibility to know the workings of the business. That doesn't mean you have to know the intricacies of every department, but it means you need to be in communication with the people that you've put in trust of that department. Right. It isn't now I'm going to go off and play golf. Right. It is you've got that responsibility to keep the whole together of one well-oiled machine.
Yeah, no kidding. And especially in small businesses, cash flow is king. And so many small business owners, they focus on cash flow, excuse me, and marketing and making sales. And they find that information helps them do this.
Yeah.
But then they don't realize the collection of information comes with responsibility. And that is the reason why I wrote this book, is because I noticed there's so many small, medium-sized businesses out there that are just waiting to be destroyed by one click of a link. And it would be so sad if they just understood how important their information is and how simple and their role in protecting it, and some simple steps to address this need.
There's also the buyer beware, where, you've got this pop up, secure your this, secure your that, just buy this program, buy that program. And you go, but what am I buying into? It's the very thing that I'm buying to protect, the very thing that's going to attack, the Trojan horse. So, how does one discern what is really the protection? What really is valid in protecting your intel? At the same time, not becoming so then firewall that nobody can ever get into anything, because that's you
Right.
have on the other side of it, I'd love to get into your site, darling, but I can't, the firewall is up.
Right.
So it's the one extreme to the other. How do you find that balance where you've got the security but you're still accessible?
I love the fact that you mentioned firewall, because firewall is like the being inside a castle. And the firewall is the main gate, or other gates, the garden gate, the gate in the back of the castle that leads out to the garden. And the only thing it takes to breach a castle wall or a firewall is someone on the inside letting them in.
Yes.
And that's exactly what happens when you click a link.
Mm-hmm. It can lead to paranoia. And, I think definitely caution most certainly needs to be your tail. But, once you know what to do, and, you got them, a lot of people are going, but why alchemy? Why alchemy? What's that got to do with it? And a great deal of it is to do, you really must be in tune with the work you're doing, whatever department you're in. There
Right.
are the exterior steps that you can take, but please trust the interior attunement and intuition, that gut feeling that you get, because very often that is your warning sign.
So true. And since you mentioned alchemy, I'll mention why I chose that in the title. And basically, I'm trying to reach out to people and say, what do you want to protect?
Mm.
In fact, one of my certifications is actually in physical security.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk in my book, I start off with, what do you want to protect? What is your water?
Mm.
In alchemy, and water is life. Like, it flows through everything. It's like blood in your system.
Yes.
Information flowing through our networks. What is your water? And know that the water can be good. You can drink it. It can be wine. You can bathe in it. All kinds of things. But you have to decide what your water is,
Mm-hmm.
and how important it is.
Right.
So that's the reason I said alchemy. And then after I went down that path of helping you figure out what your water is, and that's just the first part of the book, I then say, okay, how are we going to protect this? And since I went with the druid metaphor, you protect water with earth, wind, and fire.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I explained the first part of the book, this earth, wind, and fire aspects of protecting the information, your water, that you've identified that is important to you.
I mean, elements come into everything. Absolutely everything. Everybody think, oh, the elements is just the weather. No, there are elements in every level. I mean, we've got to remember, we're 70% water for a start.
Yes.
Right. And we know that attract like strike. So if your very water inside is contaminated in any way, you are actually going to invite trouble. You've actually sent out a beacon of vulnerability that, open for attack. So, the balance of our own elements within ourselves helps us actually understand the elements that need to be balanced within our companies.
Absolutely. Of course, you have the earth and wind. The earth is the controls of the firewalls and this kind of stuff. And the wind are procedures. Mm-hmm. But then you get to fire. Fire is people. Mm. People are what's going to make it happen. But you need to understand that fire
can get out of control.
And yes, in fact, it started the problem, because people are the people who created the bad security in the first place, and the people who are attacking the bad security, as well as the good people who are trying to identify the holes and trying to fix the holes and identify new solutions. So that is fire. That is people.
Yeah. And, a fire is absolutely essential to the cooking, to keep us warm. But we know what happens when a fire gets out of control.
Right.
Right. And then it can get beyond us. And in its wake, we look at, it doesn't matter how much water you throw on it, but you look at the destruction that it's left behind, and sometimes it just cannot be repaired. And so prevention is always better than cure, isn't it? So and I think the confusion for people, especially small businesses, because the big businesses can kind of hire the big people, right? But the small businesses, it's like affordability and am I being sold a bill of goods? Is this a good one or not? Will this protect everything? Because what happens when you go into something today and go, okay, I'm going to purchase this. It's going to protect this. And then it's like upgrade, upgrade, upgrade,
Right.
upgrade. Next thing you know, my God, if I upgrade to all of that, there goes the profit this month.
Exactly. And that's the reason I wrote my book, because it's written in regular business speak, so that people can understand, because it's written for the person who cannot afford to hire a security person.
Right.
Or the person who in the company is tasked with creating the security program. Like we've talked before, I created the program for mission operations at Johnson Space Center and 4 other programs. But at that time, there were no laws, there was no compliance, no standards. I was fortunate in that my boss, Mr. Failure is Not an Option, as shown in the movie Apollo 13, he had a clear vision that no astronauts would die on his watch. So
right. There's always a way.
Yeah, so it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, also that experience there working for Gene Kranz is also part of the reason of the subtitle, The Druid Spellbook. People ask me, well, where does that come from? And I said, well, I was in a budget meeting with Gene Kranz and the other people, and we were listing our projects on the whiteboard. And Gene would go up and draw a line on the board, and those above the line were funded, and those below the line were not funded. My project was above the line, and a project below the line was from the flight directors. They're in mission operations, and the head of the flight directors stood up and looked at me and said, where do you and your druids come up with this stuff in the middle of the night? He may have used a different word. So it was only appropriate that I would use this, and especially since in this book I have many examples, and some of them are about Gene Kranz, and they're at the Mission Control Center. But this book's full of war stories that I've had over the years.
And as you said, failure isn't an option, but it is true when you reach a roadblock, or this could fail with the wrong attitude, the wrong perception. Right. Okay, there is a wall behind us, but what's it made of? Can we go through it? Do we need to go around it? Do we need a laser to get through it? And the thing is, any obstacle can be addressed one way or the other. All right. Even if it is at the end, okay, no, we need to leave this wall, because actually it is actually a support wall.
Right.
And it's this wall that we need to have over here. And it's that calm minds prevail, right? And it's that when people are willing to see, there is no box.
Right.
Right. There are systems.
Yep.
And when you look at this system is working fine, that system, this is jeopardized, this is that, why is that jeopardized? What can we do with this? And all minds, that ego step aside and willing to come together and look at it as a one big puzzle. And it's a complex puzzle that needs to come together. But when you work together in flow, like druids do, right? They work with the energy, with the flow, and everything is in flow. It is in sync. And next thing you know, gosh, there's the solution.
I love that analogy, because it just reminded me on LinkedIn, there was a question of what do you do when when you're confronted with you don't have enough budget to protect the information where it sits. And my question is why would you put your information in a place that you can't afford to protect it properly?
Right.
Think about your money. You put it in a bank that has no guard.
Right.
Or has no lock on the door. Think about your information the same way. And that's what this book's good about. It helps you think about, things that, and if you do have a security guy, it'll give you ammunition to ask some of the 5 whys. Why are we doing that? What about this?
Yeah.
It provides some of that ammunition to hopefully get people to think. That's one of the main things I was interested in this book, is just get people to think.
There's another point of view here too, is, I get a lot of people go, oh, social media, no, I don't go on there. I don't do this. I don't do that. And it's like, well, if you're going to approach everything with panic, believe me, panic will find you in any which way, because that's what you're putting out. But I don't put out anything on any platform at all, anything that I'm not willing to own or give away. Right.
Same here.
Now, if it's something that is vulnerable, like I don't put out my phone number. Right. I don't want people calling me. You want to contact me, you email me. and
Right.
I'll be discerning if I want to go any further with you or not, right?
Right.
That we'd see today people, TikTok, this talk, everything talk, and it's like at some point, you can put out the information that you want that is like a fishing rod to bring them back in, right? But
Right.
don't go overexposed. So be discerning in what you put out there. Has it opened that door of
Right.
vulnerability, right? Or is it just
Absolutely.
enticing enough to make people want to know more? So
Right.
really, when you're looking at security, you also need to look at your marketing. And is your marketing leaving you vulnerable, right? Or is it representing your security?
I love that because that's one of the examples. I think I even have it in the book about your marketing person not coming out and saying, we have secured your data.
Yeah.
We are invulnerable. We're invulnerable. We have the best security in the world. You're just inviting a hacker to come test you.
Yes. Yes. I mean, why do so many companies, and especially, higher up CIAs and things like this, hire hackers? Right? Because they know that they have a target, a vision point to see where the vulnerable is.
Yep.
Right? And so if they can see where the holes are, then you know where to put the plugs in.
It's funny you mention that because oftentimes I would pull together several people from the business and information technology group and my security people. Then I'd have them over the house and we'd have lunch and drinks, and then we'd play Who Sank My Battleship, where we'd sit around and talk about, if you were a bad guy, how would you attack us? And after a few drinks, you come up with some pretty good ideas, and you take some notes and you go back, and then the following week you look at, well, how could we make sure that that's not a hole?
Exactly. And it's only that willingness to go to the dark side that you actually know how to protect the light side. Yeah. Again, I think, fear attracts fear.
Yes.
So, the thing is, please don't panic. But at the same time, caution is common sense.
Yep.
So it's, okay, look, when you are setting up your business, you need to put some budget aside for your security.
Right.
And you need to do your due diligence on what program for your size company is going to protect you. And, there you can use your social media to reach out. I'm a small company. Who uses what and why? What kind of experience have you had with them? It's the old picket fence. It's another form of networking.
Yes.
Engaging with other people. You're going to get a reveal of horror stories, and you're going to get some stories that come out, oh, okay, that obviously is the one for me. But if you just go to sometimes the professional, you go to the company itself, the salesman. Right. So it's go to the people who have had the horror stories or the good experiences. And, then you've got some peace of mind.
Absolutely. It's in fact, it's often referred to as supply chain. Look at your supply chain. Who are you getting information from? Who are you giving information to? And your products and stuff.
Yes.
It's all about the business. And in thinking about that, I need to point out my book is actually one of the key books being used in a university program for certificate on information security.
Excellent. Which book is that one?
That's this book.
The Alchemy one. Great.
Yes.
Because you've got so many others out there that are so full of information as well, which I highly recommend people look at and read. Because, why do we go to experts? Because they are experienced.
Yes.
Right? They've been through the tried and the true, they plugging the holes and securing the walls and all of that. And the reason why we go to them is because their experience is invaluable. Right? So when you've taken like your life experience and you've put it on in all of these books and you're sharing all of this wisdom and this expertise, people don't have to hire someone expensive to do it very often. It's already there in the book. Right? So one of the things that we have found, and it was brought up actually on a few talk shows, actually, how people have forgotten how to be engaged with other people. Everything is what I call headliners, blah, 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 and that where's content?
Right.
Where's the engagement? Where's the invitation? And that when we are willing to talk with each other, we gather the information, right?
Right.
And in that engagement, we become more enlightened. And it's don't be afraid to talk to other small businesses on what they're doing, what they're using. Most of the time, you'll find those people be incredibly supportive. And
Right.
if they're not really doing it for the right reason. If they're so protected, well, I'm not going to give you anything I'm doing,
Right.
then, their business will fail
Yep.
because the firewall, right? So their engagement is not just the talking with other people, but they're willing to read the information,
Yes.
willing to listen to these podcasts that we put out to give you the information,
Right.
right? It's take the time to seek out what you need to know.
Right. That's the purpose behind the book,
Yes.
is to have that dialogue. It really, I'm trying to use the proper term, annoys me, offends me when I see
Is this you are?
business. When I see a business owner, they're taking the easy road, looking for the easy button.
Yeah.
They want just, am I compliant to this standard?
Mm.
Well, compliance is a costly way to try to protect some of your information, but not all of it.
Mm.
So you're putting your blinders on, and you're not looking at what is the solution. You're just looking for an easy button so that you don't have to think about it. And like I said, in my book, I try to give you some tools to think and ask the appropriate questions so you can build a cost-effective program. In fact, I'm very proud of all the programs I built. Were always very cost-effective. I remember telling one boss, "You're spending too much money on security." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, because we're not having any problems to deal with. We're handling things smoothly, but I don't know how much less you should spend before we started having those problems." So you put the right money in the right place if you think about things.
And not everything is, even Fort Knox can be got into, so to
Yeah.
speak. So the thing is if there is a vulnerable breach anytime, it's what do you do about it?
Yep.
How quickly can you address it?
Yep.
Right. And that is just as important as is in the protection itself.
It's so funny you mention that, because in the second half of my book, I create a 4-step process for creating a cost-effective security program. The first step is why? Why are you even worried about this?
Right.
What is your information? What is your water? And then now that you've realized that you have something to protect, what are you going to do to protect it? What controls are you going to put in place? And I have some guidelines there for you to reach out to look at different ways to protect your water, your information. And then the third step is how am I going to do it? And how is whereas the what step is focused on the business, meeting business goals, the how step is looking at the data. Where is my data? Where are my applications? Who can get to it? It's what we call data centric. It gets into the messy stuff. Mm-hmm. But what you mentioned was my 4th step, and that's when. When things don't go right.
Right.
So that's when you have to deal with incidents and crisis, and deal with the ugly side of not having enough proper control. And in fact, in some cases, you're not going to have all the total control. So you have to be able to say, if this happens, I'm going to pull data from backup. Or I'm going to realize that I'm going to have a financial loss of this much money. But these are decisions. And so a great example is everybody's heard about ransomware, where you click the link and now your computer is useless unless you send a Bitcoin to this address and they send a key so you can hopefully unlock your data. Well, first of all, if you're smart, you don't click the link.
Right.
Then, if you have good backup, you simply erase your computer, rebuild it from original factory settings, and restore from backup. And you don't pay the Bitcoin. Little things like that make a huge amount of difference.
I have 3 gigabytes.
Yeah.
This is 4 gigabytes. I've got 2 gigabytes full there, and another one where I back up all the shows.
Yeah.
I back up, and my site is backed up on WordPress, so I am backed up over there as well. We've also got to look at the fact never mind a cyber attack. You've got to look at hurricanes, tornadoes, fires, where you could actually lose information. And if it's not backed up somewhere, or it's not quickly accessible for you to grab as you go out the door, disasters happen. And if you've got everything, I mean, my world is in this computer, but I have a great deal, as much as I can, and I pay the extra to get backed up, because I look at that as being cost effective. The site is backed up, the various informations I have are backed up, all my shows are then on these extra hard disks here. So if something does happen, I can rebuild. Right? It may be a pain in the butt, but I can rebuild, and you're not losing everything. So I think, again, there is common sense, right? It is that you've got to allow, not just don't focus on cyber attacks, look on natural disasters of what can happen, and have you got your information backed up somewhere that it can easily be reinvigorated.
We often refer to that in the business as contingency planning.
Right.
And it can be as simple as when I go to the store, what direction, what roads do I take? What road would I take if that road's closed? So it's just thinking about those contingencies. In my business here, I have 3 different computers I could use easily to do my business, and I have my data backed up in the cloud and on 3 other devices, and one of them's in a fire safe. So I have contingents. And so the questions you have to ask yourself is, if my data is not available, how long could my business survive without it?
Right.
And then when I come back alive, how much data that I would have captured during the time I was down that wasn't backed up, how much of that can I deal with? Can I be offline for a day, a month, a year, before it makes no sense to open the business again?
Right, exactly. You talked about that, don't open it. I get hit every single day. You're Norton. We've just charged your thing for a renewal. Well, I don't have Norton. Should you be questioning this, phone this number or press this link? Well, I know I don't have Norton, right? And I know that, one of the things I do sometimes, if it's something I'm not quite sure about, I will go to my payment plan and I will look at all of them. Has anything come out? Okay, no. So no, immediate, what I do is I report phishing.
Yes.
And I don't know how much good that does, but it's, I'm at least reporting something, whatever I have to do. But I think, again, is a lot of people are just so busy and they do a great deal on their phones without really kind of looking at what they're getting. Take a breath, take time out. I take an hour every morning before I start a show, and I look at all my emails. I do the responding of that. I address all my social medias and things I have to do there. And I do all of that before I even get into a show. And that's that kind of business is taken care of, right? Got to compartmentalize some of your time in your business for those things that may be a pain in the butt, but they're extremely necessary, and that you can't necessarily farm out to someone unless they have the proper instructions of what to do if ABC happens.
Right. Well, I as you were talking, I have to share with you that I'm excited. Not only is my book on the bestseller list for information management, but my wife actually got an email that showed my book and asked if she was the author, and it was a scam. They were trying to scam this person into taking action about my book.
But what were they trying to get her to do?
They were trying to get her to sign up for their bogus services. It's just like I got an email, actually a letter in the mail just yesterday from a company that wanted to provide marketing information for Johnny Security Seed, my company. And it was from a company called DNS, which to me right away, domain name service. So my first instinct was, oh my gosh, I can't lose my domain name. I should probably pay this $295. But I looked at it closely, and no, it was just they wanted to market my name.
Yes.
So there's scams out there all over the place.
You've got to pay attention. I even got one on my text, which I don't do anything on my phone other than phone, this, that, etc. No business is done on my phone. And I got this text of, you have your GST refund, press this, and then go to your bank of choice, put in your number and this and that. And I thought, well, I'm already on automatic. For my pension and everything, it goes automatically into my account. I decided to take the URL and look at it. And it was gobbledygook, immediately got the 404. All right. So again, had I not taken a couple of minutes just to go that step further to look at if this was valid or not, right? And of course, it already rang bells of not being valid. And I had money in and started pressing the bank account and giving out my numbers. How much would I have lost? Everything in my bank account.
And that is the whole reason why I wrote my other book, called Your Personal Information is at Risk. When I first retired, I started getting all these emails and phone calls and messages and social media, and I just started collecting them. And that's what I ended up putting in my book, a program, a process for how you should think about protecting your information, whether you're individual or small business. And then here's some real scams that you're going to see and how you should recognize them. How you should look at the URL and realize that bank is actually in Australia. Well, wait a minute. It's a long walk to Australia.
Oh, yes, I went there in my sleep and opened up a bank account. Yeah, right. Yeah. And, again, I have 2 or 3 different types of security on, I'm with Microsoft, I've got that security. I've got another one. I clean my computer regularly, and I've got all of that. But you've got to realize, we still do business by email. Although it's getting to surprise me of how many people who won't even open their damn email and you call yourself a business.
Yeah.
Right. I am not going to do business with you by text. I'm sorry, I am not. We can text to set up a meeting or this or that, but I'm not doing business with you that way.
Yeah.
And our email is being sold, it's being captured, and it's being shared around, and especially if it is up on our site, which we generally do have. If I have a sign up form, but I also have the email there for people who don't know how to work that out, or if it's unreliable, which sometimes happens. Again, it's the discerningness, this type of stuff is going to happen. On social media, I probably get a proposal once or twice a week. Right? And
oh darn! I was thinking I was the only one getting this.
And it's always, your eyes, you're this, that. It's always the same text, right? And I'm a widow with a child. I'm a Christian, looking for a good woman, and it's friend me. So what I do, because I am in the public business, I go to whatever their social media link is that they're doing it, mostly on kind of Facebook.
Right.
And I look at their page and I look at their about. No information there.
Yeah.
No postings that are other than themselves, where I can see interactions, no connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And 1 minute to do that instead of clicking yes and ending up with them scamming all my friends.
Right.
Right. So it's a pain in the butt that you have to, for so minutes a day, kind of look at things discerningly and just delete, pish and whatever them. But at the same time, it is like you're getting in the car and you're making sure the tires are plump and, there's gas in your car, there's oil in your car. It's all of those things that we have to do to know that we're secure to go wherever we need to go.
You need to look through that peephole before you open the front door.
Yes. Well, no, after a horror movie, you don't do that. I've seen too many of them.
Okay. So you have a camera out front.
Yes, exactly. I always have big windows I can look out the door. But again, we are in a world where, we have a selection of people that are beautiful souls.
Yes.
They are incredibly wonderful, giving, nurturing, loving, wonderful people. Media doesn't cover these people. If they did and they covered it more, I think it would invite people to be more kind of caring and beautiful people. What we see all the time is the scum of the earth. People who will do anything to anyone to get ahead, and they have no conscience and no consequences at all. And unfortunately, the media covers them all the time. So of course, they get all the attention. What we feed is what grows. Be
Yep.
sensible, be conscientious,
Yes.
be cautious, but don't be fearful.
Right.
And, those seeds that you're planting of goodwill, keep watering them. Because those are the vibrations, people, those are the elements that you will attract.
Yes. Well, and that right there just segues into why I wrote my books. When I retired, I still felt like I had something to give, and that's what I wanted to do. And I just wanted to nurture people to do the right things.
And very often, this is what I hear from people is like, oh, I need that. Oh, okay, but how or what or where? And that is what's missing. It's the realization, first and foremost, you need this information.
Yes.
No, don't be intimidated. Don't be panicked. Your next question is I need this information. Where do I get it from, and from whom?
Right.
Right. Or how do I get this information, and from whom? And then you've got to be willing to do your due diligence. You don't go open up a business on a cloud that's going to flutter away.
Oh, I know.
Every business needs a foundation that is secure.
Yep.
Do your due diligence.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir here. In fact, it's funny I say preaching, because another title that I often said I had was not only Chief Information Security Officer, but Chief Information Security Sales Officer. I was always out there preaching and selling security.
And that security that people don't realize they need. The other thing is, it's like there are certain cultures that won't write wills because they think this is going to entice death, which and this is old data that's been passed down, and people have bought into it as a panic. It's the same thing as why we buy, car insurance in case we have a crash. It's the same thing when we buy life insurance. It's not that in case, I'm going to die now. It's so that you have security for your family or your loved ones that you leave behind. It is that security, knowing that if something happens outside of your own control, that you're covered, and that security in your business is the same. Yep. You can have a thriving business. No outside element happens other than you get COVID.
Right.
Or you break a leg.
Right.
What happens to your business? You've got to have somebody else run it for you while you're doing that. And you just hope you've got secure measures in place that they can't screw it up.
Yep. I totally agree. All back to contingency planning.
It is. But that goes beyond just what goes on in our business. It's also how we look at our own lives, isn't it? As I said, we are our business. If anybody's going to do business with us, first and foremost, do they buy us?
Right.
And are you walking around with a firewall?
Right.
Are you walking around so open and vulnerable? How much kind of security do you need to have in your own vibration to attract the right people?
Right.
And not be open and vulnerable.
That's so true. Yeah. I love the part where you're talking about being centered. It's funny when I talk about being centered. The form of karate that I studied was Aikido, which has no attack moves. So, and being centered in Aikido, whether in the dojo or at my desk dealing with problems, it was so important to be able to see this stuff. I could see the hackers coming, push them away.
Yes. And being centered in your life is essential to your equilibrium of being well balanced in order to see the clarity.
Yes.
Right. If we are off balance, off kilter, or if we're in stress or we're in panic, we crunch.
Right.
When we crunch, we stop the chi, the energy, the blood flow, everything from moving. Right. And we cut off the sources of information that want to flow to us. So very often when anybody's faced with a crisis, the first thing we say to them is, take a breath. Because by taking in a deep breath, you're lining up your chakras, you're lining up your whole body, you're allowing that energy and that blood flow to go all the way through the body. It calms you down. What do you see? in calmness, you see solutions better.
Yes. Yeah, it reminds me actually, one aspect of it's in my book that we haven't mentioned here is risk management.
Mm-hmm.
Is there's risk out there all the time. So how are you going to deal with it? First of all, is that a real risk? Is that a real attack that could bother you? If not, why worry about it?
Right. Why invite it?
Yeah. So then, in dealing with risk management, one of the key things that I did in my businesses is oftentimes executives like to look to the chief information security officer as if they own the data. Well, I didn't own any of the data.
Yeah.
It was owned by marketing or operations or the CFO. And oftentimes questions would come up, do we do this? And I'd pull together a meeting of me and the technology people and the owners of the data and say, it's your data. Here's some of the things that could happen to your data. And here's some of the things you could put in place to reduce the possibility of that happening. What do you want to do? So it's staying centered and looking at all your options and managing the risk.
The whole.
Yes.
Rather than the part, like you fortified the walls around the castle.
Yes.
But, you forgot to put the latch on the front gate.
Yes.
Right. So, it is when, and this is stuff that we talk about in medicine and in mental health and everything. If we're only focusing in on one problem, we're creating other problems.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's important that whether you think it's necessary or not, that all of the moving parts, all of the moving people are there. Yes. Because maybe it doesn't affect their department right now.
Right.
But if the other departments are being affected, it's going to affect your department somewhere along the line.
Yes.
Right. So it's the fortification of and the equilibrium, right? It is the calm weathers, the calm elements that you want, where everything benefits everybody, because again, everything's allowed to flow without any severe blockages of information or fear of the wrong information.
I totally agree. In fact, as you were mentioning that, I remember a book that I read about the story about a company that built sailboats, and they didn't communicate well, and they ended up with more sails than they had hulls to put them on. So, you have to have that. You have to stay centered, look at the whole, and what is the whole objective?
Well, it's back to communication.
Yes.
It's back to interaction.
Yes.
Right. It's like, well, my department needs this to help with all the other departments. No, it is all departments need to come together. If particular finances need to go to that department because that's the vulnerable one right now, and that's the stability of everybody else. Right. It's got to be, one has to communicate. Otherwise, faux pas are going to happen.
Absolutely.
Without ego.
Yeah,
right. About me rights or any of that. It is about for the greater good of the whole.
I love that. And without ego is funny, because what I did in several companies, I would have a meeting with each executive and get them to explain to me how important they were and how important their data was. And then later, if an issue came up about their data, I would go back to them and repeat to them their words about how important their data was, and ask them, how would you want to proceed protecting your data? Whereas before, people would come to me and say, this data is at risk, what are you going to do? And it's not my decision. I'd get the owner of the data involved, and we look at the whole picture.
Exactly. This, even though you hire an expert or you buy into a program, there's still, again, that due diligence, and that trusting when something's wrong and you may not know what's wrong.
Right.
Right. I don't know, just like, this keeps happening. I don't know, is there a hole in our security? Why is this getting through? Or why is this a problem? Is there a glitch in the programming? Right. I'm having a particular problem right now with setting up a new meeting platform. Everything is looking like everything should work, but it isn't. One is not speaking to the other, but it says it's speaking to the other. So somewhere along the line, there's a little glitch. And that means somebody in whatever that department is has to go through layer upon layer upon layer to find out where that tiny little glitch is. Yeah. Right. So let's have respect for the amount of time sometimes that they need to go through that to find that tiny little glitch.
Yeah.
Right? I want it now. Well, yes, we all want everything now, but there
Yes.
are procedures that one has to go through to discover what the root problem is before you bring out the band-aids.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. It's got to look at the big picture, and you got to have that communication.
Yeah, if you don't communicate, you miscommunicate, and that's when things start going wrong and start crumbling. You know,
Right.
you could even be a solopreneur like me,
Yeah.
and you've got to put on all the hats. And some of my hats are very wobbly. They're not my forte. It's and I'll learn as much as I can in that. But I know that sometimes I really do have to bring in this. I do have to bring in that because it's an important hat at this moment. And if I secure this hat at this present moment,
Yeah.
it's going to be stable, for all the other hats. And yes, you may be the solopreneur, but there are so many other programs that we can use that can be our team.
Yep.
If we know which programs to use that work cohesively with each other.
Totally agree. Yep. And you mentioned before about the communicating outside of your company with other companies.
Yes.
So almost every company I've been in, there's been a bonding, a communication with my competitor companies.
Mm-hmm.
Because security is not something we're competing. We're trying to protect ourselves against the bad guys. So we would share information about how we're protecting ourselves.
Right. Because when one person's discovery, could be that missing link on something else, and it should be. When it comes to security, that information shouldn't be, well, it's mine. It should be for the greater good again, outside of one company, all companies, because if everybody has that,
Yeah.
but there is no one size fits all, and there is no one company that's capable of doing it all.
Wow, I should probably write a book on that.
Yeah. You probably have. I remember many years ago, I had Norton, and a worm went out, and so many people got it, and I took it in, and they tried, resetting my computer and reprogramming. Eventually, I had to throw the computer away. That worm was so utterly embedded, and I remember that it crashed many, and they learned a great deal from it. Right? They learned how to protect from other worms. Not to say that somebody is going to invent another one, but we've got to realize that until you learn what the attack is, you don't always know what the defense is.
Right. It was so funny. You mentioned worm and attack. When I was at Dell, there was a virus, an email virus that propagated itself. As soon as you open it, it automatically sent to other people in the company.
I got one of those.
So I was working at Dell, so I turned off our internet, turned off our email service, so I could go in and clean things up. And I was off. Email was down for about an hour and a half, and it gave me just enough time to find all the root email and get it out of the system and stuff. And it was good that I did that an hour and a half, because Michael called me up and said, I want my email back.
Well, yeah, not if it's, going to spam everybody. That's going to be more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might be, okay, there's this thing called the phone. Phone someone and say, what, our emails are down right now.
Yeah.
And, in this cyber world, people know things go down. Right. And especially if we have retrograde. Retrograde plays havoc with Wi-Fi. And so it always causes problems. We always, when retrograde comes up, it's always like, how tough is it going to be this time? And we've also got to be patient with each other, courteous with each other, and use other mediums to contact people and say, I'm sorry this is down right now. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. And, instead of getting mad at that person, what can they do about it? Nothing. Reschedule. Have a little grace, people.
Yeah, in one company we had a contingency plan where we made one assumption that we might have our email service down, so we had other personal email. the way to
Hmm.
get in touch with people. And key members of the staff had satellite phones.
Yes.
So we had, if the cell towers were down. So you have to think about what happened. How do we keep communication going in the key places?
And
The,
again, if something does happen where, you know, an appointment doesn't come up or something doesn't come up online, is like, you know, don't assume that the person is snubbing you. Now, you know, very, very often, especially here in the podcast world, people will forget.
yeah,
Or, you know, something else came up because they don't have the respect that, you know, this is somebody else's job that you've just decided to brush off. That's another
right,
peeve. But, you know, it does happen, right? And it's like, if there's a reason behind it that's really valid, then one is so, you know, don't assume, don't get mad first. Get the information.
right.
You know, when everything is up and going, because I had somebody apologizing. I'm so sorry getting you this information, and her show is not for another 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I was in the middle of a hurricane. You know, like, the last thing I want you to do is worry about what to getting me information while you're in a hurricane. I just want
right.
you to worry about surviving, please, hon. You know. And then you've got the other people who send it to you 5 minutes before the show, which
Yeah,
nowadays I don't accept anymore. If you is not
yeah,
in it at least the day before, forget it.
yeah.
But it is you know, I think again the internet has brought us together around the world. It is we, you know, I can interview anybody anywhere in the world, which is absolutely wonderful. It's a
Sure.
gift of expanding business, especially coaching business, where now, you know, the coaching isn't just people within their vicinity, it's anywhere. um, but we've also got to remember glitches do happen.
Yep.
We've got to remember that maybe our security is okay, but maybe theirs isn't, and it could infiltrate. Are you secure enough to make sure that it doesn't? And just quite honestly, take a breath. Uh, it's a great system. It's a great, you know, thing that we have here. Wi-Fi, an incredible invention, really.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it does have its issues. And if we're on top of what issues we can control, great. But there's always going to be something that we don't have control over.
And you have to remember that the internet was not designed with security in mind to start with.
Right.
It was just designed to communicate between two computers. And
Yes.
that's how it started. And security was an add-on. And it's gone so far now that there's something called deep fake, which is something your listeners can Google. And that is video that looks real, that's not. Like, for example, the FBI showed me a video of Nixon eulogizing the death of the two astronauts when they landed on the moon, when the crash landed on the moon. Well, they didn't crash land, but you'd look at that
Yeah.
video, you'd swear that it was real. But the same thing happened in Ukraine. The president, there was a deep fake video of the president of Ukraine telling people to lay down your arms and give up.
Yeah.
And luckily, it was so poor quality that everybody said this isn't real, and they went ahead and kept fighting.
Right. Well, I mean, in this last episode of America's Got Talent, they actually had these people that created where they would take someone like Simon Cowell or someone else, and people would be singing opera, and this camera on them, and it would look like it was Simon Cowell or somebody else singing.
I
And it
saw
was
that.
so convincing. You're looking to like, where's the line with the neck or anything like that? And it was just not there. You would think it is them. It used to be a picture could say 1,000 words, something you could trust.
Right.
Not anymore. Not
No.
anymore, because it can be so manipulated. So
Yes.
when you do see a video and you go, is this right? Question it,
Yeah.
because until you hear it from the source, you don't know if it's a manipulation.
That's so true.
Just, I mean, it's sad that we've got that way. It's sad that there are so many people out there that want to deceive us instead of enlighten us.
Right.
But again, trust your gut, trust your instincts. If it doesn't feel right, generally, it probably isn't right. And then, you know, if it really bothers you, if it's really concerning you, you can look into why it doesn't feel right and how it affects you, or you can just move on to something that does feel right.
Totally agree. That's like I said, the reason behind writing my book was, besides many of my peers wanted me to share my war stories, I want people to look at this stuff and think. Just get people to think.
I'd like to make a comment there, but I'm going to be positive. Sarah, behave yourself. You know, abstaining from thought, abstaining from a communication, abstaining from interaction is one ticket way to some form of failure.
Yep.
And, I know that you look at a couple of gray hairs here and go, I haven't got time for that. Well, unless you make time for that, you're heading straight for the swamp.
Yep.
This is imperative in your business of life itself, never mind any business that you have in life. And that taking the time, taking the breath to be engaged, to really see something for what it is. This is why we've got so much hysteria and fake news out there, because people are seeing headlines and reacting to headlines.
Yep.
And not bothering to question content.
Yes.
You have become sheeple, blindly going with the hysteria and the hurricane, right? And it's like, be discerning, please. Yep. Be discerning. And in any business that you have, solopreneur, small business or big business, there are different levels of security. And I assume in your book that you will lay out kind of the steps that they do need to have according to the size of business.
Well, actually, it starts with the very simplest thing is what is your water? What is the important, and as you go through the 4 steps, what is your, why are you doing it? How are you going to protect your water? And that stuff, the 4 steps, they're iterative. You go round and round because your business is changing all the time.
Yeah.
Getting new customers, you're having new products, new services. So as your company evolves, my process evolves with you. As long as you're thinking through the process, it's there to help guide you to solutions.
And of course, we collect now today people's email, their information. Again, I don't hand out phone numbers online to anything. When you're signing anything, it's email, I will, because it's business email. That's fine. Sure. Right. But again, at some point, I've literally come out of sites because they're demanding that I have a phone number. No, if I don't wish to give that to you, I don't wish to give that to you. If you force me to give that to you, I'm not interested in doing business. I will do it by email, because through email, I can be more discerning. I can also see how bothered. I get hit all the time with, I can do this for your site. I can do this for you. And it's badly written, no business title there, no site to refer to, nothing, right? I'll only charge you this. No, you ain't getting any money from me, folks, because you're not representing yourself in any light, right? So again, that discernment is, I think, the first step of security.
Totally agree there. Yep.
So no matter what business you're in, and we have an awful lot of automation programs today, and there's some excellent ones that are really, really good at gathering information for you that makes it easier for you. But again, know which one you're signing up for, right?
Yes.
Do your due diligence of, is this a really good company? Do they stand by what they're doing? Put the feelers out in your social media. Anybody else using this program? Have you had any problems? Yes, it may take you a wee bit of time to get the feedback, but don't you want to be sure-footed rather than just sign up with something because it looks glitzy and it's going to take this burden off your shoulder, and the next thing you know, they cannot deliver, or there's problems with it, and your customers are getting pissed off because their information is going somewhere.
Yep.
Take the time to do your due diligence.
Yeah. What is protected, what is not, what's going to happen when things go bump in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Exactly. Business isn't all about the spreadsheets or the product or the service or this or that. There's that whole behind the scenes thing. And, that is your foundation. That is your stage for your production. And if the stage, if the lighting isn't right, or, the screen isn't secure, it could come down in the middle of your production, right? So it is, we have to set that stage. We have to know things are in the right order, that they are secure,
right,
before we invite anybody up on that stage with us. So it's just due diligence.
Yes, it is.
Part of business. And I think, in your why, when you talk about what is your water, I think it's a very good question for anybody to ask in any form of business is, why do you want to do this business?
Yes. Yeah.
What's driving force in this? If it's money or fame, I'm not sure how far you're going to go. Right. If it's something that really, this is a service that you really feel will benefit people, that you're very proud of it, you are it,
Yep.
then you have the seeding for success, as long
Yep.
as you put everything else in its place.
I totally agree with. In fact, that's the mission of Johnny Security Seed. To help people avoid the evils of the internet.
Yeah.
And either through this book or previous book or my Cybersecurity Sam series of books for young people, it's basically awareness. And believe me, I don't have to worry about the IRS. The amount of money I'm collecting from these books are incredibly affordable, because my mission is to just get the word out and help
Exactly.
avoid problems.
And you know, you're again, but I don't know what to do. Pick up a goddamn book and read it. The information is in there.
Yeah.
You know, you are there to talk to anybody. If they have some questions, right, they can reach
Yeah.
out to you.
Yeah.
So, again, where can they get the books? Your website, anything else that you're offering out to the people?
Well, actually, if you go to just about any place online where books are sold, you can just type in my name, Rich Owen, and you'll see all my books listed there. Book Baby, if you go to bookbaby.com and you type in my name and you enter the code JSS1, capital J, capital S, and then number one, you can get any of my books, ebooks, or print books, or 10% off. Oh, that's on the bookbaby.com website. So like I
Okay,
said,
gonna make sure that is on your.
I'm not here to make a huge profit. I'm just trying. Actually, wouldn't be nice if I did make a profit.
Yes,
So
be nice
have
if
it
you
so
covered the
far.
costs, right?
So yeah,
Yes.
I'd like to cover the costs, but it's there, and it's actually, if you go to my Johnny Security Seed webpage, you'll have all this information. It's information is there about how to get the 10% off. And there's a free book of my Cybersecurity Sam series out there on my website as well. It's called Spring Break. I've been giving presentations to schools about security and computer science, and oftentimes at the end of the presentation, the students will say, well, how do I get into this field of cybersecurity? So I wrote a book that's called Spring Break, in which my lead character, Sam, solves the problem of the day, but ends up having a discussion with an FBI agent of how do I get into this field? So that book is out there. And some of my good friends actually helped me create this book. I mean, one of them is a graduate of West Point. Another one is she has pulled herself up by her own bootstraps. She was pregnant in high school. Now she's a member of the International Board of Directors for our profession. So these are real people that have helped us solve real problems. So
Right, and that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Johnny Security, that's JOHNNY Security Seed, SEED.com. And of course, he's on the Amazon, and I've got, buy the books from Baby using the code. I've actually got it right here.
Yeah.
I've only got some of his books here in the banners. I haven't got all of them, but if you click on it on the Baby book one, you'll see all of them there. Or so you click on this particular Amazon look I have right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. All you have to do is put in Rich Owen, R-I-C-H, Owen, O-W-E-N, and his 2 shows come up with all of the information there. And, I don't care who you are, where you are, what you are, whatever you're doing, security is something that we need to be mindful of. Whether you are actually in a business or whether your life is your business, there are security measures that one needs to be aware of. And who doesn't use the internet today? Right? And there are just some things that one needs to be aware of when you are using it. And, if something looks concerning or too good to be true, do your due diligence before you press click, because that click could be very, very costly.
Absolutely.
Mindfulness, folks, mindfulness. Take the breath and look at it. Does it feel real? What does the gut say? Before you panic or before you press something, oh, I don't know what this is. I didn't order this. I'm going to phone them or I'm going to press click. No. Look, is there a website? If there isn't a website, then it generally probably is not valid. And if there is a website, copy and paste it and see, is there a 404 or is it a valid website? Right. Just please, yes, it takes an extra moment. but that extra moment could save you a great deal of trouble.
Absolutely.
Always wonderful having you here, Rich. Always a delight.
It's always great to talk to you, Sarah.
And I look forward to whatever next book is coming out. And please, folks, support him by getting the books. I think if you have teenagers at home, this is great to get them to read the books now. Let them grow up knowing what they need to do. They are so savvy on the computers and on the phones and everything else, but are they savvy about the security, right? And this is something that I think they need to have entrenched in them right now, and that they actually understand what steps they need to take in order to secure whatever ventures they're going into, because nobody lives without the internet today. But are we being secure in how we're using it? So get this into the schools, get this into the homes, get people reading them, and then start the conversation about them, because that's how things spread. Through conversation, folks. That means you actually talk to each other. Ah!
What a concept.
What a concept. I know. We're all a couple of old farts here about talking. You can text to each other if you really want to, but we would prefer that you actually talk. Thanks so much for being here, Rich. And folks, it doesn't matter if you are having a business or you just use the computer a great deal, right? You're on it searching this and that because you enjoy it. What security measures are you taking to protect yourself? And he's got a book on it. Look at all of his books. Look at the content underneath of what the book is all about. There is a book that he's written that you need to read. So please reach out to him. Johnny, oh God, I've gone blank.
Johnny Security Seed.
JohnnySecuritySeed.com. And everything that you need to know is right there. So until next time, folks, please be secure and happy. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You will see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations, or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.